When we talk about focus on first-party data, and the reason why we're talking about this is because you can't elevate the customer experience if you don't know who you're talking to, what their preferences are. You can't pre-fill in forms. You can't suggest to them things based on their lifestyle or demographics. Everything, whether it's considering loyalty, lifetime value. If you don't know the customer, you can't greet the customer. We know how important visual cues are when we're face-to-face. But when we're not face-to-face, data fills in some amazing gaps. Some of you might remember a company called AutoLeadStar, and for years they started popping up, literally popping up on websites. And I was like, who's this AutoLeadStar? And I just heard one dealer over another dealer saying, man, they're a great product, they're a great product. And I still had no idea what AutoLeadStar was. And finally, we connected with the company and understood what they were doing. And just as I was starting to understand AutoLeadStar, they changed their name. That's not fair. That's not fair to Fullpath. And what I learned about Aharon and the team is that they are laser focused on filling gaps in dealer operations through a data-first strategy. It started by knowing the people that are coming to the website, creating personalized offers based on maybe some shopping behavior, then using that data to do smarter marketing. But each year I saw this platform growing and growing and growing in features and functionality until the point where when they started talking about their CDXP, right? CDXP. Remember, there's like CDXP, CDEP, OPP. There's a lot of things that come up with acronyms. But what's not so important is the acronym is, are they helping dealers move metal? Are they helping customers connect with the right car? Are they accelerating vehicle turn rates on dealership lots? Are they truly elevating the customer experience? That's really up to you to decide today. I'm really happy that Aharon came. He flew in from Israel. He's flying out tomorrow. And you guys are pretty important. If someone would fly, how many hours, Aharon, was it? 12 hours. 12 hours in and out just to see.
12 hours in a different reality.
Right, exactly. So would you please give a warm MRC welcome to Aharon, the CEO of Fullpath.
Can I get the mobile mic, actually? Thank you. Thank you all. It's a pleasure to be here. Brian, thank you for having us, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'll say I was extremely moved by Brian's words this morning about the situation in Israel. I'll just say a word or two because it's difficult not to. You know, this industry to us it feels like a family many times, and you know, there's people. Thank you so much. Test. It's a family feel in the industry, and when Brian talked about how you know, everyone is connected and how we have to pray and think about what's happening, you know, to companies like ourselves, Fuse, UVI, it really is close. And I'll just say, like, you know, our little company, Fullpath, we have 70 team members in Israel. We have about 70 also in the U.S. And in Israel, it's a small country, 9 million people, and everybody's been impacted by what happened on October 7th. We have a company advisor, a guy named John, some of you know him, who's been with us for a long time. You know, his kid was at a music festival, and you know, in come the terrorists, and they run into a shelter. Terrorists throwing grenades, wound everybody, kill people, gets grabbed and kidnapped and taken to Gaza. He's still there, wounded. His name is Hirsch Poland Goldberg. I was sitting on the plane coming in to Israel, and the guy next to me, you know, at some point I struck up a conversation from Israel to here, and you know, he's basically on his way to Mexico to raise awareness about his sister and 2 kids, his sister's 2 daughters who were kidnapped from a little community. So it really did impact us in a very powerful way. And it was important for Eliev, my co-founder, and I to be here because this is our world, the automotive community. And we have really experienced an amazing outpouring of support. You witnessed it with Brian this morning, but it came from everywhere. Competitors of ours, friends, people just reached out saying, can we help? Dealers, supporting us, and it's been amazing. So our company, in many ways, feels like business as usual. We go into work, we work, but we have like a lot of people who've been called up to reserve duty, and there's this feeling of like something extremely different right now. We're living in like a split screen. So I just want to say on a personal level, thank you to everybody for the support you've given us in terms of the prayers, the emotional support. The company's been really blessed to have like an amazing team here and there. We've been able to really continue strong. So, just thank you to the auto industry. You guys deserve a hand for that. And Brian, thank you this morning. To the topic that I'm excited to talk about, CDPs, with that transition. Our industry, I think, is really building the narrative of CDPs here at MRC, at Dealer Marketing Summit, meaning this room is where we're figuring out what a CDP is going to be in the auto industry, whether a CDP is going to be in the auto industry, and how we're going to interact with it. In my view, as one of the first companies to bring CDPs into the space, I think we launched our CDP in June 2022, relatively early, potentially, as far as we can tell, probably the first. And we feel at Fullpath, and dealers that I talk to, that right now we're at a crossroads, okay? In the classic sense of a crossroads, right? I was talking to someone about this presentation, and they were like, oh, you're actually at a crisis point. I'm like, it's not a crisis. It doesn't feel like a crisis. It's just a crossroads. They're like, no, it's a crisis, because the Latin meaning of a crisis is that it's either going to go this way or that way. It's going to survive or not. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting point. Well, when we look at the universe of CDPs here in this industry, folks in this room, I think if we reflect a bit and we say, well, are we getting value out of CDPs right now? Does it really mean anything? Does it deliver tactical value to the dealership, to the actual showroom, to the moving of metal, as Brian talked about? Does it deliver strategic value? And we all know that it can and that it should, but is it? And the risk that we see, or the concern that we have, which we'd like to solve, I think this whole room would like to solve, and the extended community would like to solve, is to avoid finding a CDP, the CDP's fate to be similar to, say, like the mini disc, okay? Throughout history, there have been many examples of technology that came with a huge amount of hype, a huge amount of excitement, and then they ended up being just like a side story in the journey of the evolution of, say, music consumption. People thought for a moment that ChatGPT and AI could also be a branch that doesn't go anywhere. Is it? Will it be? Probably not. It seems like it's taken off, but that was a part of the discussion, right? Other technological innovations, they take a heck of a long time. The first electric car was invented in the 1800s. Only now are we really seeing electric cars come to fruition. This is a car I found from the 70s, a cute electric car, right? They were always around. They were here. But did they actually make an impact? Did they actually become useful? And we have to ask ourselves the question, and I think this is sort of what Brian is constantly honing in on. What is it that makes a technology stick? What is it that makes a technology real? Right? If we're always living in kind of the space between the dream of perfection, and the reality, and we can never move closer, or we only move close enough that like it feels like it's there, we're almost touching it, but we never get there, ultimately its fate will probably be like mini disc-like, or it will take so long that it'll take another 20, 30 years. Now, we know for a fact, we have a data point from outside the auto industry, right? We know for a fact that for 10 years now, CDPs have been pretty critical outside the automotive industry. And I think here we should caveat that in some industries they become critical, in others they become important to segments of the industry. Now, interestingly, some of you may have seen a company go public recently, Klaviyo. Anyone notice that company went public, Klaviyo? Klaviyo is a marketing platform for e-commerce players, mainly Shopify sellers, right? If you go to Klaviyo's website, one of their core offerings is a CDP. And here we have e-commerce sellers, people selling whatever they want to sell, small businesses that are using a CDP extremely effectively on Klaviyo and Shopify.
You have other industries where it's only the Fortune 500s that are using CDPs. And the question in automotive is, who is it going to be? Is it going to be a couple majors that adopt a CDP and get value out of it? You know, maybe the publics, some of the largest dealer groups, the OEMs, because for sure they probably will, right? They're willing to kind of go through the long slog and the efforts that it takes to do it. Or is it going to be for every dealer and for all dealers that want to use it? And I think that that's the crossroads that we're at. Now, if I look around the room, okay, and I ask here, and we'll do a show of hands, actually, do a show of hands first. Who here has a CDP installed? Who here can look at their line item on their budgets and say we have a CDP? Okay, hopefully, Brian, in a year it'll be the whole room, right? Like ChatGPT last time, this time. Okay, so a very small amount. Those of you who put your hands up, put them back up for a minute. Those of you that have a CDP, leave your hand up if it's giving you concrete tactical value. I'm not talking about just getting your data in shape. I'm talking about something that you could say, oh, this is actually impacting my sales. Okay, all the hands but 2 went down. So this is the state of play right now. This is where we're at in the world of CDPs. That's why, in many ways, this conference and the conferences and the conversations we're having are kind of pioneering and groundbreaking, because we're trying to figure out how we actually bring this thing to be useful to all of you, okay? And the real reason it's not useful right now is that the CDP motion, the entry of CDPs to the auto industry, met an environment, met a landscape in auto that did not have APIs, the application programming interfaces that Brian talked about in the opening. APIs outside of automotive are kind of the sine qua non, the basic need that you have, the basic necessary thing to have in order for CDPs to work. Why is that? Very simple, okay? If I bring data into my system, let's say Fullpath CDP, right? What is a CDP? It's just a database. It's a table. We get all this data that comes in, all right? Working with a dealer, in comes data. I have now an insight on a shopper. Okay, let's give a very practical example. I have an insight on a shopper. Let's say that that shopper is particularly interested in, a certain color F-150. How do I know that? I know that because I gathered some data that they were browsing on an F-150, okay? That shopper comes back 3 weeks later, right? Suddenly we're like, oh, yeah, he's back. She's back on the site. Well, what's going to interact with that shopper on their mobile phone? Name a chat company, some chat company. You're paying a chat company, right? There's a chat company on your website. They're going to now reach out and say, hey, welcome to something Ford. How can I help you? If I, as the CDP, have information, valuable information on that shopper, and I want to hand that information over to the chat company so that the chat company can say, hey, I noticed you were shopping our red F-150s, or rather, when they suggest a list in a non-creepy way to order the cars first with the red F-150s, because that's insight I have on you, can the chat company accept that data from me? Right? Does it know what to do with it? So I can be integrated with the chat company, right? But does it know what to do with it? Can it take that information and be useful? Can it close that loop? That's where the APIs are absolutely necessary. It's not just that an API exists, that we're integrated, right? Hey, we're integrated with 50 companies. Do we have the ability to do something with that data? Can we understand it, using non-computer terms? That gap, that lack, means that when CDP showed up, we suddenly hit a situation that made it very difficult to imagine how they could be useful. Well, that led to kind of, a phase one, maybe a two camps, a bit of an argument, which I think a very healthy one, which is on the one hand to say, and I think this is one important message, is let's get our data house in order, okay? Because the fundamental, and you can kind of see the strategy emerging out of these conferences here, right, out of MRC, is let's get the data in order. Let's get CDPs in. Let's get the data flowing. Let's organize the databases and the tables. Let's do that. And now let's start advocating for APIs. And once we have APIs, we'll be able to move things along and get things going, right? That's one strategy that I think will be the ultimate win for the industry. But the challenge is, where is the utility right now, and what can we do with it right now such that we're able to ultimately get value out of the CDPs? And I'm basically making the case that you as dealers, and frankly, we as vendors, have to be asking ourselves that. If you're a dealer, you need to ask, okay, how am I aligning myself with a CDP that's both thinking about a future where APIs exist, but also right now is providing me with practical value, the ability to do things? How am I, as a vendor, right, Fullpath with a lot of our friends here, how are we actually being serious, and what's the incentive structure to create such that we want to create APIs where we can actually give valuable information and see actions happen? I'll give you an example. We did an integration recently with Invoca. Anyone here know what Invoca is? A call tracking software, right? So some OEMs mandate Invoca. It's a great call tracking, like Call Review, Car Wars, similar space, right? Suddenly, Fullpath now gets Invoca calls. We're able to put those into the customer record, and we can now use the information. Actually, we use a GPT to read the Invoca calls and help guide people into different advertising audiences, as an example. That's a nice little example where two vendors were like, hey, this would be cool, let's do it, it's gonna sound great. Subaru dealers will love it, right? That's the type of stuff that we are looking for, and if we can do that writ large in the industry and create standards in the industry, we can then have an environment that is really, really productive for CDPs and where you can decouple your data side and your action side. But in the meantime, what we need to do, and this is sort of the challenge or the philosophy that we have at Fullpath, is we need to find where we can close the loop on the data to the action, okay? And that's kind of what I'm going to talk about, and then we're going to kind of live build a CDP at the end with my partner, Eliev, who's sitting back there in the console. Take a look at this customer journey for a second, okay? This is like a CDP-empowered journey that we tracked, and we looked at this. This has all happened as an example, and this sort of gives a first example. I'm going to give a few more examples of what it means to close this sort of data to action loop, or what I'm going to present as the sensor to solution loop. Here's an example of a shopper who sees an ad, okay? And they click through the ad, they come to the website. They don't convert, but they've converted in the past, okay? And luckily, through email marketing and other ways I've done in the database, like a little event where I now can identify this customer on my website, or I've used one of the folks who are on the panel up here. We know who this person is. We have first-party data. We have permission to actually interact with this customer, to know who this customer is, okay? And I also have access to the DMS, and I have access to a maybe outside program, and suddenly I could see, hey, this is a positive equity shopper, okay? They're in a good equity position to potentially, get a car, have the same payments, some good compelling offer that I can make. Well, the CDP has that data. The CDP should now be able to talk to the advertising program, okay? Now, imagine you're working with an agency. You meet that agency once a month, okay? In comes this data point. Hey, this person is now a positive equity shopper. They looked at this vehicle. Well, who's moving them to the right campaign, right? Who's putting them into the right Facebook campaign, the right Google campaign, the right retargeting campaign? Who's doing that? Do you just use the web pages that they looked at to drive your retargeting logic, or do you actually have more data from CRM DMS from your CDP to drive that, okay? Let's do that. They then come back and they convert on a positive equity offer. Now they've kind of indicated interest. Well, we've had this kind of CDP running in the background, observing all your people, and then telling your marketing machines what to do. Hey, this audience, let's send them these emails. Let's insert a line that's personalized to each person about what maybe their equity position is. Or, hey, this advertising audience, we want to move these people from here to here, right? I can now get very tactical. Let's say I'm a GM. Let's say I'm a GSM. I walk in the morning, okay? And if my CDP is really easy to use, I can actually just grab a list and say, who is everybody who was a positive equity shopper last night, who were on my vehicles, whose name I know, and where I have offers for them. And I can give that to my salespeople who are sitting there waiting to get going for the day, right? And say, hey, but when you start your day, go call these people. Great, they start doing that. Well, that call, let's say, gets tracked in Invoca or another call system, okay? I just used Invoca because it was an example, but we're trying to now do all the call tracking software integrations, right? Here they are. We have them now a recorded call. Well, let's say a certain vehicle comes up in the call. Okay, do we have an AI reading it? When you have a call transcript, you've all seen this, right? You've seen how all the call transcripts are so easily summarized now. It is exceedingly easy to pull out what the vehicle of interest is. It's exceedingly easy to pull out conversations about finance. Did we then take that and put them maybe in a different advertising audience? Do we have enough people to do that, right? All those questions that the AI has the ability to kind of maneuver around, all that's happening in real time behind the scenes as your salespeople are being tactically engaged to actually make phone calls and so on and so forth. Books an appointment, upgrades a car, receives a service offer, et cetera, rinse and repeat. You see how powerful it is when you have a CDP at the center with an AI layer, okay? And it can actually pull the different levers of your marketing and your sales engagement operation. Everything I just described now is possible. It's probably possible with us, it's possible with other folks who are at this conference. That is where we have to be right now for dealers to say, oh wow, this is actually a really valuable asset to my business. We've got our clean data, we're onboarding data, we're bringing in data, we're cleaning up data, and then we're leveraging it. Now, many of us, including Fullpath, we're really focused on like new KPIs that are coming out of MRC and DMSC, meaning these are real things. How many data points have we onboarded? How many people have we resolved? How many shoppers in our CRM are contactable, not contactable? How many bad emails do we have? How many of those have we cleaned up? Those are actual dashboards that all of you should be seeing in your CDPs. But if you just have that and you can't do anything with it, other than once in a while a manual blast, that's not going to work. And so the goal is really to close the sensor to solution loop. This is a crazy, I made this deck was done before the situation in Israel happened. Shockingly, I don't usually prepare that far in ahead, but I made a bunch of this early. And when I made this slide, I was thinking about people in our company. We have programmers, meaning our developers and stuff, whose job it was when they were in the military was to work on missile defense. And since that war started in Israel, there have been, I think, like 9,500 missiles fired at Israel. The vast majority that have been aimed at populated areas have been shot out of the sky. And these people in our company, that was their job. They wrote algorithms to do that. And I always laughed at like, oh, if that was your job in the Army, how hard is it to find like a car buyer, with positive, I mean, come on. So anyway, when I wrote this, I was like, oh, it's so easy now. It's so incredible now how fast you can have a camera with a radar, see what's happening, and then instantly pull up the missile defense to knock it out of the sky or whatever other analogy you want to use, preferably maybe a non-military analogy. But the question is, how fast can you detect an advantage or a disadvantage and then account for it? Can your CDP pull the levers? And these are the things that I think our whole industry wants to be thinking about. I came up with just a couple of random examples, and then I want to build one with Eliav from scratch live, or kind of show it live. So one example that I think is a reasonable example to expect of your CDP connected to your marketing automation infrastructure is changes in the advertising environment. Okay, these are all changes that are relatively visible to your data acquisition infrastructure. That's table stakes, right? Someone should be able to see, your tech should be able to notice when there is major changes in competitor advertising. How can they know that? There's a ton of ways to know that. There's some tools that are provided by the advertising platforms. You can watch signals over time on the advertising platforms. You can scrape every single one of your competitors' ads every single day and see exactly what your competitors are doing on Facebook. You can write a script on Google to generate your competitors' ads and take screenshots and download them and then see what's happening. You can see what they're adding, what they're not adding, and so on and so forth. And if there is a campaign launched, if more money is getting poured in, you should have your CDP be able to express that to your different platforms, both marketing-wise, right, like more strategic stuff working behind the scenes, and tactically in the actual showroom. So, for example, you could do automated keyword modifications. You could choose to make a budget adjustment. You could choose to fight and spend more money, or you could say, you know what? Hold on. They're doing all this advertising on certain models or whatever. I'm just going to ride that, and I'm going to use my first-party data to really go heavy on email, SMS, and outreach, and I'm going to start doing phone calls on customers who are searching online and coming and seeing my website, and I'm going to generate lists and do phone call campaigns. I mean, there's so many different ways to attack it, but if you don't know it, right? You don't know that that happened, and you don't have a machine to react to it. You're going to be late to the party, and you're going to miss your advantage. Another example that I was thinking about was, again, people's equity position when they're visiting inventory VDPs. This is a very common case. We look at it with all of our customers. We often look at and say, well, how many people right now visited our customer's website? We know from the CDP what their equity position is in the vehicle, and there's a good opportunity here. And they did not convert, or at least not in the last year, and they did not buy a car. Were those people engaged? And usually it's like, here's like 70 people who have leases ending or have opportunities, and you're not engaging with those people. And while you may have a revenue rate or auto alert, mastermind, what have you, looking at, say, like, okay, here's my loyalty list or my cuts, can you layer in more data on that? Can you look at website behavior? Can you look at predictive things? If you can't do that, you're going to be missing out on opportunities. Well, what would the CDP do, or a functioning CDP with the marketing infrastructure? Let's say someone visits the website. Okay, they visited the website. They didn't convert, but you have their data through cookies or what have you. Did you update the customer record? Did you put in that 360-degree customer record the site visit? Do you trigger relevant emails, meaning move them from this campaign to that campaign? Are you engaging them in advertising campaigns that are relevant, right? Different messages for different people at different times. Tactically, do you maybe tell people to call them? And do you generate talking points? You could easily use GPT engaging with your CDP to generate talking points. And then, if you think about it, what's cool there is like you have a strategic tool, the CDP, but it comes very, very tactical and very useful. It's kind of like old school, right? It's like old school dealer behavior, but backed up by a tremendous amount of power. I like to think of it as like the AI, meaning AI only goes so far, automation only goes so far, but when you give humans more tools and they're motivated, it's just the same business, just with better tools and better resources. A final example before we build it live. You have people coming in next week, right? So there's a lot of tools to deal with this, but you could do other cool things. For example, can you suppress audiences? Meaning, why should I spend my advertising money on people who I know are going to be doing something in the next 3-4 weeks, and I don't need to advertise to them right now, maybe. Maybe I do want to advertise to them, but I should be able to suppress audiences against rules or logic automatically. For example, we will suppress if you buy a car. We're not going to spend time or email energy or even advertising energy if you buy a car, right? We'll kind of rest for a while. However, if you visit the website, we will turn you back on. Why? Because we found that if you're visiting the website, there's probably a reason, and therefore we want to make sure that you're back in some sort of loop or some sort of engagement. Are you actually generating messaging that can be used in the moment in the service drive and get people into test drives while they're waiting with AI-generated talking points? All of this sensor to solution where something happens, that insight is acquired, and then there's marketing changes that happen behind the scenes, and then tactical opportunities that come out of your CDP. That's what it's about. That's when the magic starts to happen. That's when you can drive a lot more business for your dealership. Okay, so I actually came in with Eliav, one of my co-founders, and I challenged him to show me the screens that represent this, and we're going to do that. So we're going to show you the CDP in the middle. Data flows into the CDP from all your different systems, and then there's an AI optimization layer that lives around it and kind of drives things and moves things around. So Eliav, let's take it away. Okay, so let's start off with core things you want to have in your CDP. And this is not about Fullpath. This is about every single CDP you're working with and how it can be connected. And we're just going to show you a couple examples to help you guys as you're working with your vendors and your dealerships to figure out what you're going to be working with. So the first thing you want to have is data sources. Can you see very clearly what data sources the CDP is integrated with? And here, what's most important is to think about, is it useful integrations? Don't just say, hey, they're integrated. Go deeper, push further. What can you do with the data that they're giving you? So if a vendor, if Fullpath says, hey, we're integrated with Google Ads. Okay, what does that mean? How well do you know what is going on? Can you see what happens at an individual ad level? What action can be driven off of that? How clean is that data? How resolved is it? Here you have all sorts of new KPIs coming out, right, with data sources. On every data source, take, for example, CRM. If I'm going to bring in a data source, I should know at any given moment, and we don't have it all up here, but we have it on our back end, and we're about to put it on the front end. I should know how many leads, how many appointments, how many sales is my CRM seeing. I should know how many Folks in CRM are marked as do not email, do not contact. How many bad emails bounce back from my CRM list? And I should have a way to resolve it and fix it. All the stuff that Brian was talking about in his opening, that all has to be here. And it should happen all the time. So if you see here, all this November 12th, by the way, this is Zot Ford who gave us permission, and we fuzzed some of the data so it doesn't show stuff, but a great dealership in Detroit who let us use their data here. What you see here is all these polls happening on November 12th. Now, if you could stream the data real time, that's great, but a lot of the APIs or CRMs, they're not built for that. They'll crash the servers, they'll melt everything down, so you have to be able to do it in a smart way. We like to onboard at first 10 years of data. Go back 10 years, and then we want to do regular updates to make sure that things change retroactively, which they do all the time in dealer systems, that we have the most current set of data. So this is what you need to do. You have to get your stuff all the time. Ask your vendor, how often are you onboarding data from this integration that you have, and what can be done with that data? Now, once you have that, you go to the fundamental kind of core atomic, the atom of the CDP, the atom being the 360 view of a customer, okay? And here what you can see here is a customer. You can see everything that they've done that we can track based on the integrations or based on pixels or based on scraping or whatever else we can do. And all of that, meaning LAF probably won't because it probably has PII, but if you would open any one of these little tab things, you could, if you were interested academically or whatever, if you're one of those people, you could go in and see every single thing this person has done all the way back since we first saw them, 2021, 2022, whatever, what have you, all the way up to where they are right now, okay? You can see what website they looked at, what page they looked at, and so on and so forth. Now, what's cool here is, like, for example, if there's call tracking, that comes in. If there's email stuff, that comes in. It's all being kept here. And then what you want to do next is you really want to then enrich the data. You want to get insights on the data. So, there were some great panelists up here that I was like writing down everything they were saying, because I'm like, oh, maybe that could be a good source of data enrichment. We could talk with them, and we could feed enriched data in here. Maybe Cars.com will let us put in Cars.com clicks here, right? Something we've asked Cars, Cox, others. We want to be able to put those in here. We want to have insights. What really is their vehicle of interest? Now, you look at this and you're saying, it's in the CDP, but my people are working out of the CRM. We'll talk about that in a minute. Fundamentally, what you have here, though, is at the very least a core view of this customer, and then you may even want to go further and get like analysis, talking points, and ideas. Okay, so here you have a guy, this Jack Reeder, and you could see different audiences he's in. He's in a positive equity audience. He's in a newly listed inventory audience, right? So he's someone who should be emailed if there's newly listed inventory. There's VDP visit. He recently visited a VDP. Those are different audiences that you can activate: email, advertising, phone calls, SMS, etc. And then here's suggested SMS reach out, suggested email reach out. Now, at this granular level, most dealerships not really are going to be. It's hard to run a dealership with people going in and clicking here. It's not in the CRM, etc. But it's there because GPT put it there. And if there were APIs, you could push it everywhere. But I'll show you what happens behind the scenes, which is that much of that is happening automatically in the marketing and can be made available to the sales team and the salespeople if they want it, based on what they wanted. After that, you want to then say, okay, hey, I'm a salesperson. I'm sitting, at the floor, on the floor. Can I get information on what this person owns and what they might want? Sure, that's also in the CDP. If you have an integration with Fuse, OfferLogic, MarketScan, etc., you can pull in data. You could generate opportunities here. You could do it on a granular level. You see him right here. You could do it on an opportunity level and sort that by salespeople. Again, this is all in a CDP tied in with marketing and what have you. Okay, so here you suddenly have all the opportunities today, sort them by salespeople, give it over to them, zoom out, and really integrate this into the dealership workflow. Okay, but we don't always sell by opportunity. Sometimes we have cars we have to move. We have models we have to move. Well, just like you have that atomic unit of a shopper, of an individual, you could do the same thing with vehicles. Okay, here's a list of high-interest VDPs. You could build low-traffic VDPs. Using your CDP, you can make filtered lists of whatever you want on your VDPs and your cars in order to find opportunities there. And if I want, I could dive in, and I can look at an individual vehicle, and I can see everything about the history of the vehicle, and then I can see people who are interested in the vehicle. This is a huge amount of power to have in a single view. And this is something that, again, when you think about CDPs and tying them into useful activities. Now, I'm a salesperson, and I don't have time to go into another damn dashboard, right, the ADD thing. Well, guess what? Why don't we bring it to you? The data should flow to where you need it. Here's a plugin. This is not live yet. This is live on like 4 dealers. We're testing it out. But if I'm on the website and I have a dealer plugin, I can see the CDP on my website. It's like, I've got those CDP glasses on. I can see it on my CRM as an overlay, okay? All sorts of cool things like that. And here you go, you have actual people with the ability to see what is happening on their page and see the data right there. Data availability is key. Is data available as an API? Is it available as a webhook? Is it available as an audience? Is it available as a streaming audience, not as a flat file, which is a thing that Brian has said to us several times. Can you stream data out as opposed to sending a flat file over email, right? All that is available right now from our CDP and frankly from some of the folks sitting in the room. The question is, can anyone do anything with that, right? And that's what we have to solve. Once you have that data tactically, right? So again, think about how powerful it is for the individual GSM to give them that list of top opportunities and say, hey, go after these today. You can then rely on your strategic marketing machine plugged into your CDP and AI behind the scenes. Okay, this is an example of audience activation. This is how you scale it up, right? It's great for high funnel in particular. Look at that, 11,000 people engaged in the last 30 days, from the dealer's contact list. And you have all these different audiences in sales and services, 10, 15, 20 audiences. Just because someone's in an audience doesn't mean they're getting the same message as others in the audience. They're getting a personalized message, but I'm in that audience for a reason, right? As we talked about earlier, that audience represents something unique and interesting about me, and I'm going to be activated around that audience. Now, these are Fullpath created audiences, right? Really dealer-created audiences, because everything we do is a dealer tells us, hey, do that, and we do it. But let's say that. But let's say I want to go build a custom audience. Okay, I'm a unique dealer. We have, folks here I know, I won't mention my name because then I'll forget someone, but who are building these audiences. I want to go build a custom audience. So here I have, appointments recently seen, all shoppers, but let's say I want to build a custom audience, create an audience. People who visited my VDP, who have lease payments coming up, they're almost done with their loan, who are gonna, whatever it is, tying together CRM, DMS, equity data, offer data, and website data, and on and on and on, whatever we can get, you could build your custom audiences. And then you, as a creative leader in the dealership, suddenly have another tactical and marketing strategic weapon. You could build your audience, you could plug it into your own email machine, or soon use ours, but I'm sure there's many people here who have those types of products. And you could also go and make those lists to use in the dealership, use for campaigns, and so on and so forth, right? Now, this applies as well to digital advertising. It applies as well to on-site ChatGPT stuff. All of that can flow from the CDP to the point where ultimately what you have is this, you just have this view of what's going on in your dealership. You can watch it. You could see it. There's a cute little map view which is showing what's going on, on the site. We froze this from, probably a couple hours ago. What's happening on the site in real time with real known data, but you know that your marketing machine is operating behind the scenes with your CDP at the center. Your AI is moving people this way and that way, sometimes showing up maybe to ask you a question. I saw, where is Kevin? Kevin had this video that I loved where it showed, an AI waking you up in the morning saying, hey, can we do this, can we do that, right? That's the future where it's gonna go with agents. But fundamentally, you have this strategic marketing machine tied into your CDP, and then you have a tactical tool to actually go old school with new school resources on the showroom floor. This is what we think at Fullpath, and as part of your community, as part of this discussion now for the past year and a half. We think this is the critical piece. You have to figure out how to, yes, get the data. I think we've done a huge amount of work there. The data, we have a view of how to get the data in now. There's a lot more to do, but we have a view on it. We have a view of what the new KPIs are around data. Identities resolved, how much data onboarded, et cetera. What we need to figure out now is that hook and that tie-in to actually making it useful, because if it is, then dealers will take it and never look back. And that's what should happen in this industry. This is an industry with enormous amounts of data, enormous amounts of structured data. It is a prime example of a retail space that could super benefit from highly integrated CDPs. And the hard work we have to do is to bring it there. Sometimes that means you're going to have a more coupled approach right now to it, where your CDP is kind of tightly coupled with your marketing infrastructure. As the APIs come, you can decouple. And as long as the data side is built right, and the vendors are straight shooters, and they can make sure that the APIs exist, you will be able to create an ecosystem that is both useful right now, where the data's flowing and the marketing's happening, and ready and set for the future, where suddenly it's like, oh, you're using the Fullpath CDP, you're using PureCar CDP or whatever. and then you want to go use, Team Velocity, or you want to go use CF Search, who I saw here. Great, the CDP exists, CF Search knows what to do with it, CarNow knows what to do with it, and you could just tie it right in, and the APIs are ready. When we get there, wow, like Brian can shut down the conferences. But in the meantime, we're not there. And so you have to really look and say, does the CDP I'm working with have the ability to activate the data and really make it real, and are they also set for the future when we can do that? Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys.
Let's see. Oh, there we go. Got some questions.
Go for it.
Love your vision. Dealer marketing managers in this room have never had the options to see individual customer data. They've never seen data hygiene practices. They don't know what the best practices are. And we know that audience building is really powerful, but they don't have any practice at that. What advice would you give the dealers in this room as this technology becomes more available? What type of skill sets or training? Who's going to be their best employees? Because for the most part, they've had to trust that NCOA was done. They had to trust that email appending was done. They had to trust that the right address was overlaid with a new address. They have no practice at testing data integrity. What do you see? Because it just can't be tech and then trust Fullpath that they're going to do everything perfect. How do we find that skill set? Where's the gap?
So I'd say there's two things to do. One is definitely in terms of personnel. There's a skill set around data and how data works in a business. It's a skill set that's well developed. There's a lot of teaching and training for it. This is not new by any means. It's new in our space. So anyone who comes in our space has to learn the ins and outs of our space. But I think that every dealership is going to have a significant data team who are doing the things that Brian just expressed. I think many dealerships do already. Meaning, from our experience now, there are very few dealers that just trust, right? The dealers really are in the weeds, and they are looking at it, and they are trying to figure it out. So that's what I'd say is one thing is it's definitely worth seeing if you can have headcount for someone with a pretty strong data background. I wouldn't really say data science. I think that's going too far. I think often that gets lost. You get lost in like a lot of theoretical research projects. You need someone who's like a really good kind of data activation, data onboarding, really comfortable with data, really comfortable with systems, who can run scripts and pull out, do SQLs and pull stuff out and whatnot. The second thing I'd say though is one of the major challenges is just around data and clutter and cleanliness, and spending time to actually proactively do a project and say, hey, we're going to look at our CRM. We're going to look at how many people are DNs, do not contact. We're going to ask the question, why are they do not contact? And we're going to say, maybe we should go and do an outreach and see if they want to be do not contact, right? We should look then at our DMS and see how many email addresses are just weird, like .c instead of .c something, right? That happens all the time. Those types of projects actually have huge benefit to your whole ecosystem in the dealership, and they have outsized benefits. So you can, those things are just a matter of like basically grunt work, like pulling out CSVs, looking at them, and being willing to upload them and put them back up. So I'd say those are. Now again, hiring programmers at dealerships, there's some that do it and they have like pretty sophisticated internal systems. My view is that like if it's core, great, but there's a lot of really good software that either exists or is coming, apropos the AG table over here, right? So there's good software that's coming, there's good software that exists. I think generally, self-interested here, but use that stuff because we're fully dedicated to building that all the time. There's a reason most businesses use Salesforce and don't develop their own CRM now. So there's some logic there. But I think data is going to be a core function at most dealerships.
Are there questions? Anybody who's working on a CDP project, found some challenges, frustrations? Is there anything that you might want to ask Aharon about his vision for the future of providing next-gen tools to do tactical. Kevin, so Joe, we have, okay, here's.
Yeah, I got to share first that I feel like in the last year and a half researching this, I've heard so much smoke and mirrors, and you're probably only the second person I've heard that gave an honest appraisal. So let's give them a round of applause for that. Thank you. I think for the average dealer out there, this is very overwhelming because you can build audiences, you can get so deep. How do you execute with it? I'm curious about your vision from this perspective. Right now, I think the most important thing for each one of us to do, at least for the next year out, is to get a basic CDP, consolidate the data, complete data hygiene on it, and then utilize that as a marketing fuel that we send to our providers. But to me, the vision is going to be, this is going to need to be an automated process. There's no way we can keep up with these massive amounts of real-time data, real-time signals, building audiences. I mean, I think the average dealer out there needs someone that's going to build out that entire ecosystem and hit go and just tweak it as we need. Your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. So we launched a product a few years ago, many years ago. It was a failed product. It was called Explore. It still works on a few dealers, but overall it was a failed product, meaning we had to turn it off on 90% of the dealers. It was a failed product because it required so much manual labor to hook it in and tie it in and get everything like linked up that by the time we were ready to go with the data, it was an attribution product. It's amazing. You really understand what's happening in your dealership on a data level. By the time we were done, the dealer was just, what was it? They were like, tongue out, exhausted, beat up, frustrated, and we were like, this is not going to work. And from that moment on, our decision at the product level, led by Eliav here, was everything has to be automated, everything has to be easy, and so we went extremely in the other direction. And we made it so that there's minimal dealer act requirements, and we just found ways to do all sorts of crazy things. We scrape and we hack and we cut, whatever the dealer needs us to do to get to their data, we bring it in. And then we built all the automations to work behind the scenes. This year, we launched something called Project Workbench at Fullpath to start undoing that in some ways. We're now releasing all sorts of manual tools for the dealers to use our systems and use the hard work we have. I mean, there's a slide that I didn't show that has 50 website providers. Who even knew that there were that many in the industry? 50 that we have over the past 5 years, not just mapped so we could put a pixel on, but actually figured out where on the page does it show the features, so that we can read the features and we can know what is being hovered over, what image is being hovered over. Now, if it was a standardized website like, AG or others that are coming out, great, but there's 50 website providers, so we had to do that work to map 50 website providers. Dealers don't need to do that anymore. We have that, and now we can open that information up and give tools and workbenches. So my view is that we're in a space where automation is the baseline, but anywhere a dealer wants to go in a workbench, we have to let them. And that's the challenge, and we're now building the workbench, but the automation piece, we and I think others have been working on for a while. It is a challenge, though, what Kevin pointed out.
Great.
I think we're done.
Yes.
Brian, I don't want to...
Would you give Aharon a big round of applause?
Thank you.